What is up, bookies, hookies, hookers, book hookers, whatever we decide to call you? This is our first video of our book reading channel. I'm Shantal. I am your resident young adult fantasy lover. Anything to do with fantasy, I'm your girl. Today we're going to be discussing The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L Armentraut. So if you're interested in hearing about my thoughts on this book and maybe a lot of spoilers, keep watching. Don't forget to like, and since you're here, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a comment, and now let's get into the hook, baby. I would just like to start out by saying that I have been obsessed with this particular series from when I first read it, which I want to say was the end of 2020. So I was a bit late on the trip for this particular series, but when I got on it, baby, I was on it, okay? So let's just do a quick summary of the first two books, because Crown of Gilded Bones is the third book in this series and what we thought was going to be the last book. Here's where my problem starts. Anyways, so quickly just going through the characters, we have Poppy. She's the maiden. I'm assuming actually if you guys are watching this that you've read the first two books, so I'm just gonna be quite general. So again, Poppy the maiden, and then we have Castile or Hawk, who is her love interest and who was also coincidentally her kidnapper. Basically Poppy lived kind of basically in a gilded cage. Poppy lived in this place called Solis or Solis, however you decide to pronounce it, and Hawk infiltrated that place to kidnap her in order to use her for ransom to get his brother back from captivity from the queen over the entire kingdom that Poppy was residing in. Now in this series we're introduced to three mythical beings so far. We have the vampiri or the vampire, whichever way you want to pronounce it, which are basically vampires, but they're bad vampires. They feel nothing, they can't go out in the daytime. They're basically what we know vampires are supposed to be like. That's what they are. Very callous, very cold, can't go into sun. And then we have the Atlanteans or Atalantians. Again, like there's just so much in this book. Like how's one supposed to be able to pronounce anything? So we have the Atlanteans, and they are the original, I guess, vampires, but they're good. So they're portrayed to be good in this space. So they low-key are the creators of the vampiri, and that is just a whole other story on its own. Three, we have the werewolves. I'm a werewolf girl. If you didn't know, I am team werewolf all the time. If there's a book and there's a werewolf in it, that's where I am at. Those are the characters I stan. And of course, there is a character I stan. He is a werewolf. His name is Kieran, and he is Castile / Hawk's best friend. And yeah, so those are our three characters that we really get to know in the first two books. And then on the third book, we get even more characters. Now, my love for the first two books just comes from the incredible plot twist that Jennifer puts into these books. Like, she is a master of me reading, and I think I know where it's going, and then all of a sudden, nope, I have no idea. We're on a totally different space-time continuum. We're in a different space altogether. The third book picks up from where the second book ends. So it's literally immediate. Like, we are in the same scene as it ends. And we basically get the rundown. My thing was, so this is one of my criticisms, the action-packed parts of the book went by so fast. And you would say, well, Shantal, that's obvious. It's action-packed, so you're gonna read it faster. But no, like the first 40 pages of this book were a madness, okay? Poppy killed hella people, and then, I'm trying not to give spoilers. Poppy killed hella people. There's this whole conspiracy about her being a god. she has these powers where she can control others' emotions, and that kind of developed throughout the second book into her being able to heal, and then that developed in the third book to full-on godlike abilities. So we pick up on the third book with her exhibiting this like godlike wrath, killing a whole bunch of people who previously were trying to attack her. So she had every right. My girl was, it was defense, okay? She had every right to kill those people. But here's the vibe. She like just stepped foot onto this new country. No longer is she Castiel's kidnapped, but she is now his wife. Their dynamic has changed. They're in love, and they're actually what in the book they refer to as heartmates, so soulmates. So yeah, we pick up with her killing all these people. She feels threatened in this part, obviously. And then out of nowhere, all of the wolves that were in Atlantia, whatever it's called, descend upon the place where she is, which is actually a temple of the god Niktos. And all the wolves come and literally bow to her. What's happening? So Hawk's mother in this portion, you know, takes her crown off, and this is where the story goes crazy. Before we knew that Poppy was gonna have to be in some kind of royal position because she was married to Castiel and he was next in line to be king of his country. But now, tables are turned, baby, and she is the rightful heir to the throne, so everyone has to relinquish everything to her. We have Poppy being taken away by the people that attacked her. At this point, she's held hostage. One of the key characters in the second book, his name is Alastair, and he is the royal advisor to the king, but also kind of like a father figure to Castiel, and also his ex-fiance's father. He's also a werewolf. He comes forward and basically has his whole villain monologue. He's the one who sorted out trying to assassinate her. He's doing this for his country. He needs to protect it from her because her ancestors, these deities, basically destroyed Atlantia before, and now he doesn't want to see the same thing happen because of her. So she vows to kill him. And then we have a second villain monologue from a previous character in book 1. So now we're into like 2 betrayals, 2 villain monologues. Poppy's kidnapped. Castiel, we don't know where he is. We are assuming he's not dead, but we're assuming something's happened to him because Poppy's kidnapped and no one's come for her. And now we get to the point where, Castiel decides he's bringing her out. Castiel rescues Poppy from being kidnapped, but in the process, Poppy somehow ends up dead. You heard me, dead. And now we are faced like 50 pages in with a very confusing beginning. Like, I literally messaged one of my friends and I was like, why am I reading this and it feels like an ending? Like, what is she playing at? Castiel ends up ascending Poppy. If you read the first 2 books, you know what that means. If you didn't, I don't know why you're on this video. Very strange behavior, girl. But basically, ascending is turning her into a vampire. And that's basically forbidden because those are the enemy. But Castiel was like, I don't care. This is the love of my life. I'm not gonna let her die. I'm gonna just take the consequences if she turns into one of those dead, like, no soul, crazy, ravenous, bloodlusting, like, things. I'll deal with it. Because at this point, it could go either way, right? She could literally be turned into a vampire, and then the story, where are we gonna go? That's the thing with Jennifer's writing. She writes these twists and curves so seamlessly that you're just like, what is happening? How are we here? Like, how is this possible? So she ascends, doesn't turn into a vampire, but has to feed immediately after being turned because he had to drain all the blood out of her body and then put his blood back inside her. So then she had to feed because she was experiencing hella bloodlust. So at this point we were like, she's gone. This is it. But turns out, nope, she's just normal Poppy, we think. So that gives us one big huge question mark at the beginning of the book. What is Poppy? And here's my biggest critique. So after all of this action, as I said, this was like the first 40 to 100 pages of the book, right? This book is 600 and something pages long. For the next, I kid you not, 400 or so pages is just descriptive words. it's just a huge info dump. Like, to the point, this book came out April 20th. I pre-ordered it, so I literally waited up until midnight to read it. I finished this book on April 30th, which is unheard of for me. I finished these types of books in like a day and a half to 2 days, pushing it maybe 5 days. It took me twice as long to read this book because I could not get through the descriptive parts. And she's a very descriptive writer. In all, like the first 2 books as well, she gave very descriptive paragraphs, but this was like going on and on and on and on and on, and so many different characters were being introduced in this moment. Like, you had different gods being introduced. It was just too much. Like, you couldn't remember everything. I felt myself reading but just skimming at that point. Like, I would see a description and know that she's gonna continue describing something for the next however long. It was giving Lord of the Rings. It was giving like Aragon. It was too many descriptions. Like, you don't have to tell me the color of Poppy's shirt 10 times. All you need to tell me is that she's wearing a shirt, and then in the next scene be like, oh no, she's just wearing a shirt and now she's talking to Castiel's dad. Those are the only important points that I care about. That kind of happened throughout the book. It was a lot of hammering information into your head, and I know it's just setting us up for, one, her prequels and whatever else is happening in the book afterwards. But it really just felt like it was going on and on, similar to how this little monologue that I'm talking to you about right now feels like it's going on and on. Now, fast forward to the end of the book, everything again, much like the beginning, picks up running, okay? We get finally the introduction to Poppy's brother Ian, to whom she's been talking about for the last 2 books and we've never really seen, but we knew was also taken into, let's just call it the capital or the city or whatever. We weren't sure if he was ascended or not, but he was ascended. And Poppy's whole stance was that maybe not all ascendeds are bad, and it was mostly her just like hoping, even if her brother is ascended, that he's different. And you know what? That girl was right. That girl was actually right. So Ian shows up. Poppy and Cass and their group go to meet them. They have this little speech moment. Poppy's very like emotionally charged because this is the first time she's seeing him, first time realizing that he's an ascended, and so she's angry because like this is her brother and now he's basically her enemy. But by the end of their little conversation, he leans in and gives her a piece of advice that blows everybody away. He basically tells her the Queen has these like special forces that will literally kill everything in its path, and the only way that she can defeat them is if she brings the guards of Nyktos. Nyktos is asleep. He is a god. Now how are they supposed to reach a god? Guess what? Apparently there's a magical tunnel, and all you have to do is go through the tunnel. And coincidentally, we've heard about these tunnels. I feel like we heard about these tunnels in the second book. Her like mapping is crazy. Like, she really maps these things together. So we heard about these tunnels in the second book. It's basically where Cass, his brother who is kidnapped, and Kieran, his best friend, the werewolf, used to go play and explore. And they would map all of the tunnels. So he knows the entire tunnel system. Wow. What a time. It's almost like divine intervention. Yeah, it basically is. So Castiel, Poppy, Kieran, and some other werewolves travel to Elysium, which is the land of the gods, baby, through a tunnel. And then they have, you're not just gonna walk up to gods and be like, hey, there's obviously gonna be some kind of conflict. So there were some skeletons popping up, there were some issues like in the tunnel, all that kind of stuff. But eventually they find what they're looking for. They find Nyktos' guards, which turn out to be our 4th supernatural being, dragons. I guess it's 5th because we have gods now. Like actual gods, like they're a physical being. Before they just used to talk about them like, oh, the gods, like Greek mythology type gods. But now we have a physical representation of the gods in Nyktos, because Nyktos also awakens. He's awake. Who knew? Before talking to Niktos, she awakened his guard, Nektas. The names in this. Jennifer made this extremely hard for anybody to map through these names. So you have Niktos, the god of whatever, life and death, and then his guard is a dragon, and his name is Nektas. So Poppy awakens Nektas. Nektas does not eat her immediately, and then Niktos comes out and he talks to Poppy, lets Poppy know, well, you are screwed. I don't know how to help you, but I know that you can help yourself. Basically is what he was saying. He was like, you can help yourself. It's all in you, girl. It is. I'm every woman. It's all in me. Everything you want done, baby. That's basically what he told Poppy. He said, you can do it. You don't need me. And then Poppy all of a sudden leaves Elysium in one of the cities of Atlantia. Maybe Evamon. She needs to give us a pronunciation sheet because this is getting crazy. Poppy, feeling a little confused but not necessarily defeated, decides that she's gonna take the, what we call the Blood Queen, who is on the other side. She's supposed to be the vampire, the bad one. Decides to take up the Blood Queen on her offer to meet. And so she travels there with Castile and with her group of werewolves. And she shows up in the city, and the queen tells her some alarming ass shit, bro. After all of Poppy's like godlike abilities started showing up, we all thought she was gonna be a deity. Turns out she isn't a deity. She's actually a god, because she's descended from a god. We find this information out, I want to say like halfway through the book, that she is supposedly descended from a god, but we didn't know exactly how that was possible. It was just a lot of question marks. So the queen, Eloana, she explains it to us. And you know what Eloana says? Baby, Eloana comes forward and says to her, I am your mother, ho! That's what she did. She blew the whole spot up. Because, a little quick backstory, Castile's mother was married to Malik. Malik is Niktos' son. We thought he was just like a really strong deity. But no, he's Niktos' son. And he left Elysium to frolic around the lands, met up with Castile's mother, Iliana, married her, cheated on her with Eloana. Eloana got sick or was about to die, and he ascended Eloana, who at the time, her name is Isbeth. Can you follow these maps? Cause I'm struggling, baby. At this point, my mouth is on the floor. I'm like, so Eloana is Isbeth, which means Iliana, Castile's mother, fucking knew that. She knew. She definitely knew. And she let her daughter-in-law go to meet Isbeth, the first vampire, whatever it's called, and be shell-shocked. Be absolutely gobsmacked. And that is just one surprise. Iliana being Isbeth is one surprise. The second surprise obviously is Isbeth Iliana being Poppy's mother. Then the third surprise being that Malik is actually a damn god, ascended Iliana Isbeth, and turned her not into a vampire, but into exactly what Poppy is. So they're both like full circle. The exact thing that happened to Poppy happened to Isbeth, Iliana, whatever. The difference being is that Malik is a god and kind of created Isbeth, but Poppy was already a god, and the ascension kind of just unlocked all of her abilities. Castile is next to Poppy. And next to Eluana Isbeth is Castile's brother, to whom this whole scenario, this whole shindig was supposed to be about, right? He was supposed to kidnap Poppy, trade her to the queen for Malik's release. Honey, why is Malik there dressed to the nines, cheeks flushed, fully fed, happy? I thought he was supposed to be stringy, dead, like drained of all his blood, close to being crazy, because that's what they did to Castile when Castile was captured. No, he's out there chilling, girl. He's been good this entire time. This entire time. The betrayals in this book just kept piling. It's just a long list of everybody getting their ass handed to them. And that's something. So now Castile's like, big man, how are you here? How are you good? What is up? And Malik is like, well, you know, brother, nigga's gonna nig. It's not what he said, but it was close. It felt like it was close to me. He basically was just like siding with Eluana. Isbeth, in a rage at Miss Poppy, because Poppy was mouthing off to her mama, and that her mummy kills her brother. Chopped his head off, girl. Well, got one of her guards to chop his head off. And that was the end. That flipped Poppy's humanity switch all the way off. She was trying to like save people. She was trying to be a good girl. So she lost her shit, attacked the queen, but was too slow because obviously the queen has years on her at this point, right? She Nicki Minaj'd her. You are my sons, basically, is what the queen said to Poppy. And then you know what happened? The queen took Castile. And I'm telling you, these are all the last 200 pages of the book, right? And I'm flipping. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So now what? Sweet girl hightails it. Well, no. Yeah, she hightails it back to Atlantia. Confronts the queen. Basically is like, confronts the queen, Castile's mother. Basically is like, hello, you did not tell me that this was who was over there, and now she has your son. And not only does she have your son, she has your other son. She has both your sons. Knife. And then the other, she kidnapped and is gonna just treat awfully. Second knife. And then Poppy's like, you know what? You're a selfish, jealous bitch. And I'm tired of the bullshit, the insecurities. You're basically immortal and you're behaving like a baby. So then we have this whole process where they go back to Elysium, but she skips, you know, the process of getting there because that doesn't matter. And Poppy realizes that when Nyctos was like, you're every woman, it's all in you, he meant, bitch, you're a god. Bitch, you can call on my freaking dragons yourself because you're literally my granddaughter. You just gotta pick up the phone and be like, hello? And the dragons are gonna be like, hello, governor. And that's it. That's what happened. She woke him up. She was like, let's go, pack it up. Then they fly back. And then they get to the, you know, they get back to their little meeting point with the queen or whatever. The queen, however, doesn't come. The king does. The king that the queen's married to. And Miss Poppy kills him. He's gone. That's not smart. And your mother also have these, you know, crazy like super soldiers called the Revenants. And the Revenants is basically the reason why Poppy needed to bring in the dragons, because the Revenants cannot be killed. They're basically our now 6 supernatural being. They're basically zombies, but zombies who are fully capable of communicating. So Poppy has this epic standoff between herself and a revenant. I don't remember her name, but I actually really like her, so I hope we get more of her in the 4th book. And basically brings the freaking dragons, and she's like, yo, I'm about to blow your spot up, so come at me, bro. And then the revenant is like, don't do this, like, I don't even want to really fight you, babe. This isn't really my choice, but there are innocent people behind me. I remember your promise. You didn't really want to hurt innocent people, but Poppy is fiending for the blood. She wants this war now. She doesn't care who's in her way, but the revenant eventually talks her down, and we end on a cliffhanger. We end on a damn cliffhanger, as usual. As usual. I know I spoke just really excitedly about those last couple chapters, but realistically, I'd probably give this book a solid 3 out of 5, because that middle chunk of just descriptive words blew mine. And I didn't even really touch on the sex scenes, because I didn't even feel like the sex scenes were anything to shout about. Like the first 2 books, the sex scenes in the first 2 books had me like salivating. I would say, hey, is this erotica? Overall, this baby gets a 3 out of 5 from me. I think on Goodreads it gets a 4.5 out of 5 stars, 3 stars. I just feel like I read all that for nothing. I felt like we could have had more time in the God realm, because that would have been interesting to see whatever the gods were there. But I know she has a prequel coming in October, and that's gonna be more god related. I wasn't feeling anything, babes. Like in the 2nd and 1st book, I was crying, I was screaming, I was pulling my hair out, all that. And in this one, like, I had to fight myself to pick up my book to read it, and that's just not like me. I hated that. I felt like I had to fight myself to be like, Shantal, you have to finish this book. No. And then when I reached the end, I was like, whoa, mind blown. So many things happening, so many different conspiracy theories being thrown out, so many different pathways that we can follow, so many different characters to deal with. But I just wished the middle of the book wasn't that draggy. So if you've made it this far in the video, let me see a little book emoji, or maybe a hook emoji. Is there a hook emoji? I'm not sure. I hope you enjoyed my very chaotic review. Jennifer L Armentraut's The Crown of Gilded Bones. I'll see you hookers in 2 weeks for another book review. But until then, do not forget, baby, to like and comment and subscribe. See y'all in the next video.